Okay, beautiful. I'm really excited about this, guys, because we've got Juanie here to share her story, which is really interesting. It's one that really caught my eye, actually, Juanie. It's one because I think a lot of people are moving away from pharmaceuticals and they're looking for alternative practices and they're looking for alternative ways. So when I read your story, I was just like, oh, wow, we have to get you on the podcast. So hello and welcome. Thank you for being here with us. I appreciate you giving up your energy to be here. So, where we usually begin is really just like asking you who you are and what you do, what you're here to serve the world with.
Well, thanks. First of all, I'm really excited to be here. So thank you for having me. It's deeply appreciated. Um, so for me, I guess what I am is a human, just like anybody else. So I have things that I've learned and titles so people can find me, I guess, as you could say. So I think what I ended up choosing was because it was vague enough, was an intuitive coach, mostly because people don't always know what it is that they need. And sometimes they need somebody to explore with. And
Mm,
so I think that's where I look at that role as somebody who can explore with others. And I'm also a shamanic practitioner. And that one is probably one that speaks deeper to me just because I'm an animist. And so walking around in this world in connection, learning shamanic techniques has really helped me in my spiritual life, I would say, given me a foundation in which, we talked about the spirit team, those people, the guides that you call on and learning to develop a relationship with them. And these things were so important because ultimately they really helped me on my path when I was struggling. So I have fibromyalgia. I'm also, I was a late diagnosed ADHD. And so, my brain didn't develop correctly, mostly because, I had to move through a lot of childhood trauma. Didn't know a safe space in my youth, and it was a struggle. And so, I found as I moved through life, I was always trying to power through everything and just make it the next step. It was all about survival. And I did a lot of talk therapy, and I'm definitely not against modern medicine. Talk therapy absolutely has its place. I believe modern medicine has its place. A lot of miracles can be performed through modern medicine. But what I found is that when I got diagnosed with fibro, there wasn't a lot of answers for me. The
mm,
medical system they didn't know. Half of them thought that it was, something that was in somebody's head. The other half was just like, well, you're just going to have to take this medicine for the rest of your life. We're not really sure what's going on or why. And they've done a lot of new studies that have come out, and, they're understanding more and more. But that's the thing, is we've given up a lot of the control over our health, our body,
mm,
our mindsets to external forces like, here, you fix it, you do it, you make it all better. And that's just not the way of things. Like, they can only do so much. And I think that's really where, I feel like I'm just here to help people be able to explore that, like be able to really take back. I know it sounds so cheesy, take back your power, but in many ways, like your own autonomy. Like, we have so many skills to be able to take care of ourselves that we've lost through convenience, because it's just so much easier to take a pill or do all of these things. And it is, but it doesn't actually ever fix the problem. It just helps us bear it. It just helps us bear the weight. And eventually, when you keep piling that up on yourself, you just can't bear the weight anymore. You can't power your way through. You can't think your way through it. And you have to find new ways to move through it. And I think that's probably really where I don't know. I just feel like I want to be able to help people move through it. I don't want to have a program that costs thousands of dollars, or honestly, even hundreds of dollars, to have to help people, because my ideal clients aren't the people that can afford that at the end of
mm,
the day.
mm,
And, I want to help people that don't necessarily have the means to say, you know what, you can heal yourself. And here's how you can do it with the people around you, with support, without support. It just depends on what your situation is and what you're capable of doing, and finding a sense of safety within yourself so that you can explore.
That's beautiful. I love that. I think we've all been brought into this lifetime to service people on such different levels, right? So I think the fact that you've found your home and who you want to help and the level they're at and where they're at in their journeys, I think is absolutely perfect, because I think a lot of times people struggle to do that nowadays. I think people are following everybody else and expecting that you've got to create a 10,000 a month course, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong about that, because they're servicing a different level, but it's so beautiful that you've seemed to have so beautifully aligned into what you're meant to be doing, which is the main thing. That's what we're here to do, to align into where we're coming in. So with your fibro diagnosis, how did that come about, or did you become aware of that?
So that got tripped up. So I have had a lot of medical issues. So pain is something that has been present in my life in some form or another. No matter how
Mm.
hard I try to get away from it, it just continues to come back stronger than ever. So fibro came about because I have endometriosis and adenomyosis. And so
Mhm.
that is, with the uterus and the surrounding area. I had a lot of trouble with that. And so for years, I battled with that. And it got to the point, I don't know, probably about 12 years in, where half of my month was spent in pain. And so I was like, you know what? I can't do this anymore. We're just going to go and take it all out. And so I did that. And when I got out of the surgery, it was, it's a bit to recover from a surgery like that. And my body didn't feel right. I was achy all over the place. They kept on telling me, oh, well, you're just recovering. You'll be fine. And months went by. I remember I was going to have a trip to go to Houston for work. And I couldn't get on the plane. I got the flu, and it was a really bad flu to where I was just curled up in a ball. And after that, my body was never the same again. I always feel like I have the flu. It's just
Oh,
on what
wow.
level am I at the flu? Am I in the curl the ball, flu, or am I just feeling that achiness type of flu? And so I was really angry about it. It was, I wasn't expecting to have, to deal with daily pain until I was, maybe in my 70s or 80s. And
Yeah, right.
I wasn't even 40 yet when it happened.
Wow.
And I was like, how am I supposed to look at the rest of my life dealing with this?
Mm.
And so, we don't know what we're going to do to our bodies when we go through these types of surgeries. They're traumatic on the body, and the body responds to trauma in very different ways. And so my body just could not handle it anymore. And when I went through this and then immediately got the flu on top of it, it just triggered a flare up in my body that I've had to manage. And so I've had flare ups and stuff like that ever since. And it took a couple of years to be like really angry about it. I was on some pretty heavy medication that honestly, I don't know how I was walking around in the world like completely, like they would laugh and they say like I'd have an alternate personality, because I was a very different person. I was very unsure of myself, very unsteady walking around in the world like that. And I remember that when COVID happened, people were talking about how people weren't going to be able to get their medications. There could be delays. And the medication that I was on such a high dose. It was so heavy that it was not something you could just quit. It wasn't something that you could just miss. It had, like, I would miss a dose in the day and it would take me down. Like, I couldn't think,
Wow.
I couldn't manage. And so it really made me think about what was I doing with my life. And so I had always planned that when I retired, I was going to be an herbalist, but I hadn't done any of the training to do that. And my grandmother was a curandera, and my great grandmother was a curandera, and those are traditional Mexican healers. And so they worked with herbs extensively. So I was around in my childhood, and I did a lot of aromatherapy when my kids were younger. But I actually went back to school, and I've spent,
Wow.
I don't know, over 800 hours now, learning about herbs and how they affect the body and how to make medicines with them. And that's really what started me taking back a lot of, the power from the pharmaceuticals of here, you just fix it, to I need to find a different way to manage my body. And it really started with I had to learn who my body was and what language it was speaking and how it was trying to talk to me. You hear people talk about all the time about just listen to your body, just trust your body. And for me, somebody coming from, an abusive childhood, didn't know how to do those things. So I really had to start off with what does my energy feel like? And I use a lot of Reiki to learn how to, feel my own energy, using that to really help work on my own pain and stuff like that, and learning techniques to ground myself, to clear that energy, all of those things. That was probably the first step. And then it was, moving my body and listening to the signs that it would give me when I moved it. And then it was diet and how does my body respond to certain foods. And it's been a process. It took almost 2 years to get off of my pharmaceuticals,
Oh,
but I
wow.
did. It
Yeah.
was a slow process. And I think that's definitely something that, I want people to know. They don't give us a roadmap when they give us
Mm.
a pill on this is how you can get off of it. It's just you're going to take this and it's just assume that you're going to do it for the rest of your life. And I don't really get mad at the medical system for that. Like that's what they know. That's what they've been trained on. Like that's their jam. And they don't spend a lot of time because a lot of people don't necessarily want to do the work sometimes.
Yeah.
And so they can spend, how much time do they have to spend to convince somebody to do something a different way when some people just want the easy way to go about it. And there's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes that's all you can do to survive, and that's okay. But I think that's what I want to be able to show people is you can still be doing it that way and learn other ways to start building reserves so that if you want to make the change, you have the ability to start making those incremental changes. And before you know it, 2 years is nothing. And, you could be in a completely different state of being.
It's so true. And I talk about that a lot as well in my work, that it's just about taking that next step. I think as humans, because we're programmed to always be busy and have jobs, and especially women, be the caretakers of every single being in our worlds, right? Mums,
Yeah,
the house, as well as earn money. We've got a lot of pressure on our shoulders that oftentimes it can feel overwhelming when you meet someone who, like you have spent 2 years, and that sounds like a lot of time, but the time passes anyway, right? And wouldn't you rather take little steps to feeling better? And I'm sure, like any journey, I think when you're on social media, everyone says the journey's like straight up, but it isn't, is it? It's kind of like oh, oh, oh.
absolutely.
So it's kind of like a dance with your life. I love how that you've combined body consciousness and somatic processes and listening to your body and taking those steps, because that is just so beautiful. And doing the work yourself, you are a true real life example of a successful being coming away from the pharmaceuticals. So I just want to celebrate you in that, because I think sometimes when we achieve our own results, we don't give ourselves enough congratulations and credit, right? We just say, well, this is what happened and I got off my meds. But there'll be so many people that will be inspired by your story, that you stuck with it and you found a way out. And then not only that, you're now showing this amazing way to other people. So, I mean, what would you say would be like for you? I know we're all different, we're all different beings. So you cannot say to someone, right, you just need to do these 3 things and then you'll be fine. Because, I mean, wouldn't that be beautiful if we could just wave a
Right,
magic wand and just say, you know what, I'm going to get rid of your fibro. But
right.
is there anything that sticks out to you that really, really helped you with your fibro, especially? Because I feel like my team are asking me to tune in on your fibro for some reason. I think there's going to be
Absolutely.
people who find it useful.
Absolutely. So I think a couple of things that I really found useful, that were really helpful for me is that I got into the herbal world and really understanding, and I focus a lot on nervines. And nervines are all about helping us nourish our nervous systems. And I think in the world that we live in today, that's huge. Like understanding
Mhm.
your nervous system, understanding what kind of body you have when you're working with herbs, because that plays a lot into the herbs that you use. So what is your constitution? Like, I am typically a cold and dry person. Like, I'm always one that needs a sweater. My hands are always cold. I know that that's part of my body type. I know that, I struggle with dryness. I have that chronically dry, like, throat in the back. And so really, that's part of learning our body is, understanding, what is it like? And then the herbs really helped in terms of helping me nourish the nervous system. So things like, rose. Rose is a beautiful, beautiful herb for the heart and the nervous system, actually. And it can like really help build some protection around us. It's also one of those herbs that is relatively available today. I love to pair it with something called Tulsi, which is that holy basil. And most people can find that in most drugstores these days. If you go to like the health food section, they'll usually have like a Tulsi and rose kind of blend. And so those are really two beautiful nervines. And so I focus a lot on nervines with people. But before we get to herbs, really the things that I'm looking at before we get there are things like, how does your body respond to certain foods? Like, this is always such a touchy subject. And I'm dealing with it
Yeah.
right now with my youngest. And I got frustrated with it too. And I think what I ended up doing and what it really helped me is the fact that it wasn't about the fact that I had to give up anything,
Mm,
honestly. It wasn't about learning to give up any foods. It was a learning to understand how foods affected my body. And the best way I did that was, and I've tried so many ways throughout my years, was to do an elimination diet. And
mm,
even if it's just for 2 weeks, to understand, how do these things affect my body? Because, like, I learned that I have zero tolerance for dairy. And to be honest, I always knew that. I just ignored it. As a child, I couldn't handle dairy. I would get sick. And
mm.
yet I conditioned my body my whole life to deal with dairy. And I had a lot of issues that came along with just dealing with the uncomfortableness that I would get from it. And so what I learned though is the more stuff that I put in my body that it doesn't like, the less stress it's able to handle. And then I would get these flare ups because of it, because my body's like, sorry, you're overloading me. And now I'm just going to act crazy and you're going to have to deal with some pain, or you're not going to be able to think straight now. Sorry, you can have what you want, but now you're going to have to deal with the consequences. And
Yeah.
so when I'm not feeling good, that's one of the first things that I start cutting out. I start
Mm.
making sure that my gluten's out, that, I pretty much stay away from dairy, but I miss it. I
I
miss all
bet,
of these
yeah.
things,
Ice
but
cream. Ice cream I would
right?
miss.
So they've made some great oat
Mm,
alternatives for ice cream. And so I
mm,
feel like, in this day and age, it's so much easier than it used to be.
mm,
But there's still things that you're going to miss, and it's okay. And it's
mm,
okay to be sad about it. It's okay to, sometimes be like, oh, this sucks, because sometimes it does suck.
mm,
And, I think moving through that. So it was definitely the nutrition and understanding so that I could have the power to affect how my body was going to feel on any given
mm.
day.
Yeah.
Um,
And I think that's an
resting.
important point, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
about an individual feeling and also a moral choice as well. Because I know there's a lot of to and fro about things like dairy, about meat, about organic versus non-organic. And I personally feel like there's no right or wrong answer.
Mm-mm.
It's
It's
what's
what's good for
right
your
for
body.
you. Yeah. And
Yeah,
what you want to do, what you think you want to do, your belief
absolutely.
system. It's a personal
It's
choice, isn't
true.
it?
It is, because food is emotional. Let's be honest. Like, we have these connections to it. And of all of the things, like, I'm not perfect. Like, I'll go off the rails and my body will start responding in ways that I don't like. And I'm like, okay, I've got to pull back. I'm going, a little too far this way. Because for me, it's about being on that center path. I'm not
Mm,
trying to be 100% that way or 100% that way. I just want to be in the middle and be able to live a life that I can cultivate joy in, that's going to have more good moments than bad, because there's no perfection. Like, that's a myth.
Yeah, God no. I think unfortunately there's a lot of people who are striving for perfection and having their own rules. And I think when you start giving yourself rules or expecting that you've got to be 100% all the time, that's when it leads to burnout, right? And you see a lot of coaches, and I don't really align with being a coach myself, but I guess that's the easiest way of explaining sometimes what I do, like you said at the beginning.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of women that are leading themselves to burnout because they're striving for perfection and they're striving for like $1 billion business. And I just think, why? Like, why do you feel like you're not enough right now? That's what I would like to implant in people's minds. What's going on in your life that you feel like you need to do that because what you've got right now isn't enough?
It's true. And I think not only does that burnout come, but feelings and emotions like shame and
Mm,
disappointment in yourself, like, it really affects how you look at yourself, how
mm,
you feel about yourself. And that has these trickle down effects that actually leads us to do things that aren't good for our body, because we just need some sort of outlet and some way to express. And when we're not conscious, sometimes we don't choose the best things for ourselves to be able to express and to move through those emotions.
yeah. No, I know when I'm feeling like I'm slightly tipping into sabotage mode or I'm slightly feeling tired or I really want carbs. I'm like, I don't care in what form, cakes, biscuits, potatoes. I just want to fill my
Hmm.
body full of that food that for me as a child was very, very comforting. Yeah, I know that if I
Yeah.
ate too much of that, then my body would say, no, no way, it's not good. But yeah, I'm like you with my diet. I'm so not perfect, and my team are always telling me, right, you need to move some things, and I'm like, yeah, I will, but I've already made all these changes. So for me, it's all about tiny steps and just taking
Yes.
the next step and just not putting too much pressure on myself because the most important thing for me always is feeling good. If
Yeah.
like you say, being in that middle where you're just like, I'm not being stretched that way, I'm not being stretched that way. I'm just, it just feels good here. Like,
Well, it does. And I will say too, like, people don't talk enough about the power of those tiny steps, because I will tell you, having tried to make changes before, trying to do these hard, like, this is what I've got to do and I've got to be perfect all the time. What I found is that when I would fall and take step backs, they'd end up being these huge leaps backs, because I
mhm.
would be so burnt out on having to be perfect all the time that when I wasn't, I would just completely go off the rails. Whereas because they're tinier steps, that when I step back, I'm only taking like a step back. So I'm not like doing these huge things that end up being horrible for me anymore, because I'm not in that position where I feel like I'm about to break because I just can't do it anymore.
Yeah, that's so profound as well, isn't it? I think in our kind of society generally, people really want things fast and quick. They, if they can't see the results like instantly, they kind of give up or they compare themselves against someone else who's got a better result. But in truth, a lot of people on social media tend to just show their good side, and so comparing yourself on someone you don't know who's just sharing the good bits is not always the way to go. I always say
That's
don't
true.
compare ever to anybody. It's your
Well,
it's
you're
your
not like
lane.
anybody. Yeah,
No.
you're not like anybody else. So you should celebrate your individuality there as part of the whole, because I truly believe that we're all different in ways that really support the whole of all of us. There's
Mm,
something that each of us truly can bring to the table to teach other people. I
mm,
think that's why, I really feel you when you talk about, the coach. Like, I'm not special. Like, I look at myself and I'm like, if I can do it, everybody can do it. Like, there is nothing special about me. Like, we are all special in our own ways. And I've raised my kids that way. I think that they're special, but you're just like everybody else. You have the same capabilities. We all start from different spots, is, I think the biggest thing. We don't all have access to the same support systems and networks. And that's a shame, because as a society and as social beings, we should be more invested in making sure that we all do have that same access and that same type of support, because we truly need it to be able to develop. And not having that as a child, definitely impacted, the way I think and the way that I am, but I definitely haven't let it limit me. I've used those types of things to create the life that I wanted, and to create my purpose. And that's another thing that, I think was a huge myth that I had to move through, is because I dealt with so much pain and because of the things that I went through as a child, I was constantly looking for, what is the purpose of this? Why? Look at the why. And it took me a long time for me to realize that I needed to create the why. I needed to create what was my purpose. What was it that I wanted to be able to do? Who was I? Outside of what society said, outside of what I was raised to be, outside of the opinions and thoughts of other people that I had incorporated into my own thoughts of myself. Really pulling those things apart was huge. That I'm huge on self-examination, self-exploration, self-experimentation. And all of those things lead to your self-expression and how you want to go about in the world.
Oh yeah, totally. Like I always say, to go on this spiritual journey, you have to unlearn everything that you know about yourself. Or
Yeah.
everything that anyone's ever told you, almost about anything. It's like peeling those layers of an onion back, isn't it? That eventually everything will start making sense, and then it probably won't. And then you just hold everything lightly because nothing makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. I mean, well, everything is one of the comments or the phrases that we have in our home, because it's all connected. But yeah, we don't actually know sometimes how we've all of a sudden, do we even believe in this? Like this concept or our idea. I love the four agreements. That was one of the big ones in the beginning that really kind of helped me kind of step outside of myself and start questioning, do I actually believe this about myself? Or, it's just something that I've picked up because this is what people believe. And I think that is such a powerful thing, to be able to do those types of things and walk through, like you said, your spiritual journey is about examining, how do you want to go about in this world? What kind of being do you want to be? And I don't know, for me too, because I work in a lot of, do a lot of like death work and death contemplation, and working with people, who are dying, it's even more important to understand of, because I kind of feel like it sets up that next phase of, as you go through this world, understanding that the time is, limited, and it's even more important to have awareness of what you're doing, I suppose, than just to be going through life and, get to the end of it and be like, oh, like I didn't realize. And, you see that a lot sometimes of people who, get to the end and there's so much that they wanted to do, or they had these big plans that they never got to accomplish. And when I lost my sister in 2020, I think for me, that's definitely something that came to the forefront of, we in our lives go through these constant death and rebirth life cycles, this cycle of, this is who we are. And then we go down this path learning about ourselves, and we find that there's pieces of ourselves that we need to let go. They're no longer serving us. They did, but their presence actually is going to cause us more harm than help, because they're trying to protect us in a way that's keeping us from growing. And really being able to honor them for what they did, because they protected us. They're part of the reason why we got here. And even though what's happening doesn't serve us anymore, it's still something that, I'm thankful for, because it helped get me here. And I did a lot of that because as a child, there was a lot of protective pieces that, protected me and kept me in, but it also built these huge walls up that it kept me from being able to engage with other people, to really open myself up, to let myself feel loved. It wasn't even just, am I worthy of love? I was so scared to be loved and what that would mean in terms of vulnerability. And so really being able to let those pieces go and to be able to welcome the next iteration of yourself. And that isn't just a one-time thing. We're doing that constantly through our lifetime. And I think that's exciting, honestly.
Yeah. I always say that. I always find it exciting that there's no end to this work. I find it really empowering as well, because I don't really resonate myself personally with the terms like enlightened or awakened, because it, for me, feels like there's some kind of separation or there's some kind of end goal. But actually, there is no end to the work, and so that
Mhm.
will put a lot of people off, I'm sure. But for me, I just think that's amazing because I've got nothing to achieve really. I can just take it step by step, and my bigger
Yeah.
mission is something that I've got from now until eternity. You know, if you believe in, like, rebirth and stuff, I do. And so I'm in no rush, so I can slow
Yeah.
down. And it gives me space just to
Yes.
enjoy, and enjoy the moment. And I think that's what a lot of people are missing in the world. Like you said, most people are, well, you said, being on autopilot, moving
Mhm.
through and not having a conscious awareness of, is this thing for me? I think
Yeah.
unfortunately a lot of people are in jobs, for example, they don't like, or in relationships they don't like, or yeah, have friendships they don't like, or have family members that they don't like, yet they still tolerate. So um, it's painful to watch at times. People going through those motions, and
It is.
it's part of their own journey, isn't it, to realize that and to take action on that.
It's true. And I like that we talk about it as a journey because that's what life is. And I look at it as this life is just so small in comparison to what my timeline is, I guess is the best way to explain it. And this, it is I don't know, I find it exciting that it's a journey, because it means you get to explore different thoughts, you get to explore different sensations, different ideas. Like all of those things are exciting to me because it gives you so much choice. And I get that that can be overwhelming for people, but it also means that you can try new things, try it on. How does it fit? Do you
Yeah,
shave? Does it feel nice and silky? Well, maybe that one's for you. And
yeah,
so I love that idea of the journey. And that's one of the big things of when I talk to people about it. It's the best way to explain it because even, when you're talking about death, I recently was telling a client, we were talking about, that. And I was like, on this next phase of your journey, nobody can go with you.
mm,
And but it too is a journey. We don't know where it is, what's next, like because we haven't been there yet. But it
mm,
too is a journey, just like our life has been a journey when we've had to leave home and all the people that we know and love so that we can go and find ourselves. It's no different every time that we turn and do this. And I think I want people to know that they can do that multiple times in their life. It's not just like you grow up, you're in your 20s, and that's a time. And then you go through some midlife crisis, and that's a time. No, at every moment, we have the opportunity to go, you know what? I think I want to do it a little different. And it is scary. Like I did it. I was in a job for 18 something years. And it had gotten to the point that it was really toxic. It was very difficult to be in that environment. And it was a really scary thing to quit. I had basically grown up in this corporation. It had really helped me understand more about myself on a different level. I didn't want to leave. I was leaving security and all of those things. And I did it anyways. And I spent a couple of years really being able to work on myself. And not everybody has the access to do that. I feel very privileged, but like I took out everything I owned to do it. And I did something that most people would do at retirement. I was like, I don't know if I'm going to make it to retirement. I'm not going to wait. Like, I'm going to do it now. And so, and I have. And so now I've turned around and I'm back in like corporate America again. I'm do this as well, but I'm doing it because corporate America is also like my demographic. Like, I don't know people who need more nourishment on their nervous system than people in corporate America. And so I'm like, I'm going in there because I'm going to bring my work with me, and I'm going to, find the people that do need that help in there. And so it's those things that we can make those changes, and then you can make changes again. And I think, what is a greater part of being alive than that?
Yeah. Oh, totally. And I think a lot of people get worried about making those changes. My team are just saying, like, you're not a tree, so you get to move and you get to experience. And I think that's so beautiful as an analogy, because we get to try things out. And if it doesn't work, we have to remove ourselves from the fear of failure. Because I remember, was it Thomas Edison say that he didn't fail, he just found so many ways that didn't work for him. And I love that, like the reframing of failure into, I'm all right with finding ways that don't work, because eventually I'm going
Yeah.
to find something that does work. And then it's finding more ways that do work than don't work. And then that's, I think, where the sweet spot is, right? You're just finding more ways that do work. But along the way, there's going to be some failure, and there's going to be some stress, and there's going to be something to learn from, because, that's what we're here to do. We're not just here to
Yeah.
see sunshines and rainbows. It's got to be a little rain, right?
It's true. And I think sometimes lately, you hear people talking about, you got to come to the light and be in all this love and light. And yes, that's part of it. But I think that sometimes we like to think that there's bad emotions or bad ways of being, or
Mm,
like these bad energies. And I don't know, my guides, I think, really want me to point out the fact that there's a lower world and there's an upper world, but the lower world is not a bad place because it has more dense energy. It's
mm,
not like it's some sort of, you want to stay away from that. There's a lot of learning I've done and within that energy, actually, at the end of the day. There's a lot of power in those emotions and stuff like that. And I feel like it goes back to being able to come back to your center.
mm,
And we don't teach that enough. We don't focus on that enough. The fact that we can be angry, we can be frustrated. Anger is a powerful motivator. It's a powerful, like, protector. It's when you're angry all the time that it becomes a problem.
mm,
But I also think that about when you're happy all the time and you can't allow any other emotion in, that's a problem.
mm,
That means that you're avoiding stuff,
mm,
because that is not how our world is. People are like, oh, well, just be natural. Natural's the way to go. Nature is an eat or be eaten world out there too. Like,
mm.
it's not all like calm and rainbows. Like, it is hard living for some of these animals out there. They have to find ways to not only survive, but also to thrive, just like us. And, I know that for me, my guides are always pushing on bringing people closer to nature, not just on consuming nature, but in using nature as an example, as a way of being, as a way
Mm.
of community, as a way that, yes, sometimes it is harder for us and it's easier for others. But just like it is sometimes easier for us and harder for them. And it's the same way in nature when you watch the seasons, and some seasons are good and it provides, and some seasons are harder and don't provide. And it's a struggle. And that is nature. And so when we talk about natural ways of being, I think we have to remember that
Yeah,
we're not
I
outside of
agree.
nature.
Yeah. It often feels at time that people, especially human beings, are trying to push for everything to be fine all the time. They're not allowing themselves to surrender. And I know you said about the anger and being angry all the time, but the thing is, the opposite is true as well. If you're happy all the time and you're letting your energy go into excitement and happiness, that can also cause a lot of issues of not being grounded. Like, happiness can also be ungrounded in its
Yeah,
energy,
that's true.
so it's about allowing yourself to feel it, isn't it? And allowing those emotions to come out. And I remember when I was I went through a lot of childhood trauma like you, so I had a lot of feelings to process that I wasn't used to. I didn't know what they were, or what they meant, or how to get them out as an adult. It's just I wasn't taught, at all. As most of us haven't been, to be honest. Most of us in our kind of generation raising children now are raising them how to do this stuff, but we're learning first, right? We're learning and then we're going,
Mm-hmm.
right, this is what you need to do. Learning again and then showing them. But we were never taught, were we? We were just kind of told, well, in my generation anyway, it was more about being seen and not heard as a child, or not having your own opinion, being quiet, and just doing what you were told, like absolutely everything, unless you agree. And,
True.
and even if you didn't agree with it or not, even if it was
Yeah.
detrimental to your body, even if they were putting you through pain, abuse, torment, psychological damage, all the things. And so learning those things as you get older is really powerful. And I remember when I was going through this process is getting that anger or wherever it is and asking it what it needs. Like, what is it that you need from me to do? And what energy do I need to clear in order to move through this and to feel this out my body? And I think a lot of people just are still going through that motions now of what do I do with these feelings? Because a lot of people don't know what it means about them and hold on to it too much, right?
It's true. We hold on to so much in our body. And I really feel like that's why we see so many people in pain,
Mm,
where they're carrying so much inside them. And you're right, it can be difficult to know how to express it because we weren't taught. Our parents weren't taught. Like, I think
no.
those are the things that, as I realize, working with my own parents, moving through, the childhood and, trying to develop a relationship with them, it's been like understanding that, they're damaged people. They were damaged people that damaged people at the end of the
Mm,
day. And these cycles have been going on for quite some time because none of us ever, it's been a long time since any of us been able to connect to ourselves, mostly because we come from survival. Like
mm,
most of us, it's only been recently that we've had the conveniences truly that we've had to allow us time to be able to step back and look at ourselves as different beings, as more than just animals surviving out there.
mm,
And they didn't know how to do these things. And they took their own frustration, their own angers that they had about how they were raised, and they projected it onto the next generation. And that's what we're seeing is just constant reiterations of that. And now we're at a spot that we're able to go, whoa, we're seeing some real problems from this. We've got to
mm,
have to try a new way of being because we can't keep going this way.
mm,
And having all of those things though in our bodies, no one person is going to express those. Like, they're going to need different ways. So that's why I like different tools, because sometimes you try this and you think, oh, I can just journal, and I love to journal and I can get it out. Sometimes journaling isn't enough. Sometimes you need something physical. Like, sometimes I tell my youngest would get so angry sometimes, and I would be like, go break some sticks, like go whap them out there, like hit it as hard as you can, break as many as you need, because they needed that physical piece of it to move that in there. And we don't think about how much movement truly plays a part in all of that. I mean, just physically, that's how our blood moves. Like, we like to think that our heart is what does all of the pumping, but actually that's not true. It's our movements in our body that actually helps get the blood around where it needs to go in those spots. And so it's the same way when you think about our emotions. It's not just going to be our head that deals with all of that. It's going to be our body that helps move it out of our head and moves it out of our body.
yeah, so true. And yeah, definitely with the physical thing. I remember when I was processing a lot of anger, I would have like the saucepan from my kitchen and I would just go outside and bang it on the floor. And in the end, I
Yeah.
had no saucepans left. If you came round to mine for dinner, I wouldn't have to cook you anything, but it worked a treat.
Yeah.
Luckily, I have saucepans
Sometimes.
now. And I very rarely get angry. But it's interesting, isn't it? Also observing your children as well. I don't know whether that you've been able to see just how different they are to how we were raised in when you're raised with love and with spirituality as a very conscious thing. Like in our house, we talk about dreams, for example, as if it's normal. We talk about energy as if it's normal. We normalize feeling angry and frustrated, and taking that time to set boundaries with people, and all the things that really I only learned when I was in my late 30s. And my
Same.
children learnt it from 2 years old, when they could show an interest in what I was doing. I was right, here are the rocks. This is what we do to clear energy, and they've just been
Yeah,
brought up in such a different world. It's so beautiful, isn't it?
it really is. And I feel like I'm witnessing how different than they are and how more aware that they are now at the ages that they are. Like, I've gone to the store and I'll be like, because I'm a curious soul. And so, like, I'll be checking out and there'll be like two people that are working there, and they're probably, in their 20s, and they're talking to each other. And the way that they're talking to each other and the things that they're talking about, I am like, I was not that emotionally aware. I was just not that aware as a 20-year-old of other people, how it was affecting to, and the way that they're talking is so mature. And it just gives me and inspires me, honestly. Like, I look at, so I always hope that I kind of, helped raise, beings that were for revolution, should revolution be
Mhm.
required. And
Definitely.
mostly because things need to change in our world, and I know that. And so I'm like, I'm out here getting skills to be able to support these people, like, and these next generations. And sometimes I just want them to know that, all of these people, there are people that are championing, that are going to step up to be able to help if you want things to be different.
Mm,
And we've done our parts and we continue, but there's a lot. Not all of us are there on our generation. There's a lot that do like the pre how things used to be,
mm,
and it can be a process to pull out from the way things used to be to the way things are going to be.
mm,
And I just want to make sure that I have the skills to be able to support the generations coming. Honestly, they
mm.
excite me and their perspective. I'm excited because I've watched as a lot of their parents have decided to do things differently, and what they're going to be capable of doing should they want to.
Mm. And that's the thing, should they want to? I mean, I
Mhm.
remember having like careers advice when I was at school, and you could either be an accountant or you could work in an office. There wasn't much, no one
Yeah,
told me I could be an artist, and so I ended up going in the corporate world as a tax advisor, which was kind of quite close to being an accountant, I guess.
yeah,
But I just tell my children, you can do and be whatever you want, like as long as it
yeah,
makes you happy. I'm
yeah.
not um I'm not big on them learning so much stuff. I would prefer them to experience the world rather than
Mm,
learn. I've always been that way. We do reading and sums and stuff at home because my kids are only 6 and 8, so they're babies. But I'm not like, right, you need to sit down and you need to do your homework. I give them a choice. I'm like, do you want to do some reading today, or should we go to the park? And sometimes they'll choose reading, and sometimes they won't. And I'm cool with that. They'll find their own way. You
yeah,
don't see many adults that can't read or can't write in this day and age, do you? So,
it's true.
I try not to worry about them because my kids are so fierce that they'll be fine. Like you say, I feel the
Yeah,
same. I'm raising like little young revolutionists, women in tiny form at the moment.
yeah.
And within that is a struggle as well, right? Because you want them to be themselves, but then you also want them to kind of still listen to some of the rules that you have, because we have a few rules in our house, but not many. Just
I never had many either, honestly. I've got one that's 22, and then my youngest is 14. We're about to be
okay.
14 next week. And so they're definitely, I think I got a couple of years ago, my youngest wrote a thing about why I should get Mother of the Year. One of the things in there was the fact that we don't have a
Oh.
lot of rules in our house. It's like, well, we don't. I've just not found the need to have a lot of them. It's just, I grew up in that environment. It wasn't a great environment. I didn't enjoy it. So I didn't, my rules have always been about how we behave to other people, how we treat others, how we treat ourselves, whether that's, the earth, other humans, animals, that's way more important to me is how we
Yeah.
behave and how we treat other people than, you
Yeah.
know, how much you learn. Like, obviously, you know, school tends to be your job. So we've got certain requirements that we have to get through
Mm.
in terms of learning. So there's certain things you want to, because learning is important. Like, you should continue, your whole life should be learning. It's not like you go to college and then that should ever be it. Like, I didn't do college. I don't require my kids to do college. It's like, I want you to keep learning. So go figure out what you want to enjoy doing and want to keep learning about. It's kind
Yeah.
of the stance that I take with them, because you've got to do something. We all have to eat. And so find something that you truly enjoy doing. So even if you can't do that as your job, you have an outlet that brings you joy at the end of the day,
Mm.
because we have to cultivate our own joy. We've got to find the things that bring ourselves joy. If we are going to outsource that, you're going to be miserable, because you are going to
Oh,
be relying on other people to bring you joy for the rest of your life, and they're going to fail miserably, and they're going to end up miserable too.
oh yeah.
And so,
And you see a lot of that in relationships just generally, don't you? And I always say that, like, the three rules in our house are, as long as you're kind to people and yourselves, and as long as you go to bed on time, because sleep is life in our house, and as long as you eat your food, and again, food is life in our house. Those are the three rules we have, and we tune in every day. We say, you know, oh, what do you fancy doing today? And we'll tune in, and if it's not too crazy, I'm like, right, cool, let's do that.
I
You know,
love
so
it.
they're able to make their own choices as well, which was a thing that I was never able to do. You know, I don't know about you, but it was kind of like, eat this food or you'll be grounded and you'll be sent to your room for not eating your food. And it's like,
Yeah.
Christ, like, what the heck? I would never say that to my kids. I would never want to, like, force them to eat stuff that they don't like. I mean, luckily
Oh
my
my
kids
goodness.
eat all
Yeah.
the same stuff that I do generally. My 8-year-old has always been very ambitious. She loves, like, crab and lobster and all.
Ooh, that's
Yeah,
adorable. I love that.
and sushi. You should see how much these
I
kids eat
love
when we go to
it.
the sushi bar. They literally just devour it,
Oh,
like, you know.
man, that's awesome. I remember taking my youngest to go do sushi because they wanted to do sushi. I've got some great pictures. It was not their jam, but they were down to try, and I was like, absolutely, we're going now. And so I love I mean, because that's just another place that you can experiment with, and you should constantly, like, we talk about that. I'm like, your taste buds change every 7 years. So just because you don't like something now doesn't mean that you won't like it later. So that's why you should always continue to keep trying things again, because maybe you're going to be in a new space and a new way of being that you're going to like it the next time. So you shouldn't just give up on something because it didn't work the first time.
Yeah. Oh God, yeah. You gotta keep trying. And if you don't like it, then find something else to replace it, you know?
Yeah. There's so many things in this world, and that's one of the big things too. Like, when I'm talking with people about herbs and they're like, oh, I don't do well with this, or, you know, I don't like that one. I'm like, that's okay. Like, do you know how many plants that there are out there? Maybe you just need to find the one that's for you at the end of the day. And I think that's, you know, in our house we talk a lot about the line between individuality and community,
Mm.
because you can sway too far the other side and then you lose touch with the other. So if you sway too far into, you know, everything's got to be, you know, individual, well, then you remove yourself from the community, and vice
Mm.
versa. And so it's kind of, how do you marry the both of those? Because we are social beings and community is important. It's important to know how to cultivate it. It's important to know how to influence community, all of those things. And so, you know, when I'm looking, you know, at that, it is like, I want you to be, you know, that individual, and we need to understand those things. But I think that those things feed back into your community at the end of the day, and it is marrying those like that. I really love that.
Yeah, I love that. And I think I've learned more about community as I've kind of um dealt with and healed my trauma actually, you know, and I'm always a work in progress. I'm never going to say to anyone that, oh, you know, I've reached this stage where I do no work on myself, because that would be total bullshit. And
Hmm.
total bullshit. But you know, I've got to the stage now where I heal parts of me. I'm able to show up in communities to help other people and lead other people in a way that feels right for me. And I think that's a beautiful point that you said about having such being individual, but also learning the impact of what you have on even just your surroundings, right? On the people that are around you, or your community, your family, or your community,
Yeah,
the animals that you have, or your community. So it doesn't have to be like your village or your town or your
it's
city.
true.
You're surrounded by people that you make such a massive impact on, and it's really important that people understand that impact, and just what an amazing impact people make. Even if they think they're not doing anything, your energy, your attention, your patience, giving your time, smiling at
Yeah,
people, it makes such a massive difference to someone's day and someone's life. So yeah, I
it's
love
true.
when I have the capacity and the space to get involved in community. It's beautiful that you said about that. So I appreciate that we've been speaking for a long time, and I'm sure we could speak like forever about these
Oh,
subjects.
I bet.
But I really want people to know how they can find you. Like if someone's thinking,
Yeah.
I really want to know about herbs, I really want to know about shamanic, I really want to learn about fibro and how you got through that. Like, how do people find you, and what can you offer to
Absolutely.
them?
So I have a handle on Instagram, which is the same thing as my website. So it's Hidden Hollow Holistics. Holistics has an X at the end, not a C. And it's just www.hiddenholistics.com, and Instagram it's at Hidden Hollow Holistics, and so you can get a hold of me that way. And really, one of the things that I do one-on-one explorations with people, whether that's an intuitive exploration or whether or not it is a herbal exploration, just depending on where you want to go. And I use like all of the things that I've learned, whether that's Reiki, whether that's doing like intuitive like card pooling, whether that's tarot or oracle. I do Reiki, shamanic journeying. I am a big fan of teaching people shamanic techniques, just because it can be a great addition to whatever your spiritual calling is, and helping you connect with your guides, connect with yourself. I also, do a lot of the herbal stuff. I really help people as they're moving through, death and grief, like in those spaces as well. I also love to make, so I make digital workbooks. So I call them digital explorations, just because not everybody can, I want to find inexpensive ways for people to be able to do some of that self-examination, some of that, self-explorations. And they can be reused, which is really nice. So you can do them at different points in your life. And so I do those. And so those are all up on my website, and people can, check those out. I have a tiered pricing just because I want to make it accessible to more people. And then I offer free kind of free workings every quarter as well, for people who are like in more vulnerable positions, like maybe they don't have a stable like home, stable, whatever. I offer those up for those people because it's really important for me that these are the people that I want to be working with and being able to help. So I'm always willing to find a way that works for both of us. I really believe in the power of bartering. I believe that we all have something valuable to offer, even if it's not, our current currency, I guess you could say. There's lots of different ways that we can help each other. So yeah, I'm always open for people to reach out. I love exploring with people and just sharing with them. I believe everybody has the capability, like there are no healers. Everything is self-healing. It's opening ourselves up to being able to heal. And I'm just here to share the tools that I have, in hopes that it's going to help you and to help create a container that you can come and be like, am I crazy? And I'd be like, no, it's okay. Like these are okay. And it's okay to feel how you're feeling. And here's some ways that I've moved through that, and maybe some of them will help. And I think that's really the approach that I take, and how people can get a hold of me if they would like, just somebody, a co-explorer, somebody to help co-create.
I love that. I love that. So what we'll do is we'll put all those links. So if you want to send them to
Perfect.
me at some point, and I'll make sure
Absolutely.
that they get linked in the podcast, because it's really important that people can find you. I love having these chats, but if there's someone out there that's like, I really need to speak to her, like right now, I really want to make sure it's easy as possible. So
I
I'm going
appreciate
to
it.
thank all our listeners and the people who are going to watch us
Yes.
on YouTube as well. And just massive thanks to you as well for your service to the world is so important, and you've obviously been through a lot to be here, you know. So my team, I just want to send like an extra special thanks. They say like they know, you know, they know it hasn't been easy for you, but for you to have gone through what you've been through and still leading other people is absolutely remarkable. So they want to just thank you and send such gratitude for you for being here with us.
I'm so honored. Thank you.
And so I'm
Thank
gonna,
you for what you're doing.
oh no, it's fine. This is sent from my team, who I refer to as Cosmic HQ, and they were very, very, very certain that I had to set up a platform to share people's stories. So I just kind of do as I'm told most of the time. So
I love it.
I'm gonna start recording, and then we'll have a quick chat. Okay, thanks, listeners.
Okay. Bye.